And we are back. As always, we are the coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media. Broadcasting live for the very first time this evening on the Worldwide Coalition Radio Network, now on Go Local Prov. If you're not viewing this on Facebook or Go Local Prov going forward, our shows will be Friday evening from 6 to 9 p.m. here live on the streets of La Prov, right in touch with the community that we love so much, right here in the heart of Little Rhodey. Joining me in studio, someone who is a repeat offender here on the Coalition, of course, is my good friend Jeremy Bailey. He is a city councilman for the town of Burrillville. We went very long on the earlier segment. We brought people up to date on the history, if you will, of Invenergy. For our last half hour this evening, I'd like to go a little bit Oprah on you. I want to talk about the human impact of this.
Okay.
And what this has done to people in terms of the community, neighborhoods. We talked earlier about the unanimity, the degree with which the community has come together. I need to stress, though, that despite that sort of feel-good, we're all in this together kind of love, this has placed enormous stress on the town of Burrillville, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Let's first talk about the finances, what this has meant to the town. Now, in an earlier Coalition radio show, which is still on coalitionradio.us, Attorney McElroy, with the special prosecutor, as I like to call him, for the town of Burrillville, appeared. No fine or an attorney for this situation exists. Clearly,
I would agree.
The gentleman is an expert on municipal law, utilities law, regulatory issues. He's also a hell of a nice guy, and was kind enough to spend quality time with us on the air, going through it in almost encyclopedia fashion, almost as if he was in court that night, step by step building the case against Invenergy. But what financial toll does something like this have on the town, first off, just on a base level?
So first, let's talk about, first of all, Pat, thank you for having us on your show. This is great. The inaugural night of your show from your move from your last venture over to Go Local Prov. Thank you to everyone at Go Local Prov for having us here tonight. The financial impacts, let's talk about real estate. I have a real estate background. I'm an investor. I'm also a real estate agent, licensed in Rhode Island and Mass. The backbone of any community is your real estate. Be it the equity in your home, just the fact that you own your own home, and the trickle-down economics effect it has from upgrades and repairs you do to that home, and all the contractors and local businessmen that get business from your real estate. Should this power plant go in, there's a reason why there's a buyout list. Although I feel the buyout list is, wholly incomplete. There's a buyout list where if this proposed power plant were to be sited, they would buy out a certain amount of properties should you not be able to sell them. There's a reason for that. Why? Because they know there is going to be a severe and negative impact on the property values. Could I give you a dollar amount? No, I can't. But I can tell you that I know many families that proudly pay their mortgage every month. However, they may not have equity in their house. They might be underwater. And should this power plant go in, they will be unable to sell no matter what. This buyout doesn't cover them, even if they're on the list. And they've told me, Jeremy, I'm going to walk away from my home. So if you could just picture this for a moment, we've just been through one of the worst real estate crashes in my lifetime anyway. I think it was worse than the one I lived through in the 80s when I was about this tall.
Right. No, this was, particularly in outlying communities, this was as grim as it gets.
Driving through those communities and seeing vacant house after vacant house, lawns with grass 3 feet tall, it was depressing. Not only was it an eyesore, it was depressing. Just think about the amount of money those families invested in those homes that they had to walk away from and ended up with nothing, or actually a huge debt that they could be liable to pay in the future. Now, this could be coming again to areas of our state and the tri-state area, because this proposed power plant is right on the border of Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island in Burrillville. So we could be seeing another real estate collapse, in Burrillville, which, would it be temporary? Sure. But do we want to go through that? No. Do we need to go through it? Absolutely not.
And talk about the impact of that type of financial stress on the family. It's devastating.
Devastating. I've had people after town meetings come up, literally they've been in tears saying, Jeremy, what do I do? What do I do? I said, right now, we just continue our stance, we continue the fight, and as far as Invenergy goes, we just say no, and we will do whatever we can to stop this harmful project from entering our region.
You talk about folks who are trying to live lives, and when I talk about live lives, think about folks in the listening audience, the normal issues you have to go through, medical expenses, the high cost of medical care, putting a child through college or some type of vocational training, the cost of taxes in this state, the cost of owning an automobile, all of those things. But imagine this cloud over your head that's in the back of your mind literally every day. On one hand, these amazing signs that have popped up all over Burrillville and all over that community. But at the same time, that sort of nagging doubt that they create when you see them. To have to live through that stress, it's disgusting to do that to people.
It's disgusting and it's unnecessary. As we heard in the previous segment, and you've probably heard from Jerry Elmer of the CLF, you've heard our special attorney, Michael McElroy, talk about this project is just not needed. It's simply a private company looking to develop a project for their own profit's sake. There is no reason to the greater good, which is what they're trying to purport. And they're trying to say, you know what, we're trying to lower electricity costs. You're not lowering electricity costs. You know, actually, the hydroelectric power that we see coming online through Canada and in other areas of the country, the hydropower is actually helping to lower our, and all the renewables are lowering our electric rates. You know, so to tell us that they're going to build this plant to lower electric rates, it's quite frankly, it's a lie.
Yeah, and it's insulting on a day-to-day basis to have them attempt to manipulate, sometimes successfully, various parts of the media in a manner that diminishes your concerns and reduces them to this NIMBY insult. I just want to say very clearly right now, my response to when someone uses the word NIMBY, not in my backyard. Well, who the hell's backyard is it? Is it the backyard of an out-of-state corporation that is looking at a short-term profit that really is under no legal responsibility to even own the project after a while? And can leave not only the damage that's been done in the immediate sense, but leave a legacy for generations to come in a community? Or is it the folks who in some cases for generations have built a community, have invested sweat, blood, the lives of their families in building a community? Because Burrillville is a community. If there's nothing else that's been proven out of this, is the notion that you've got a group of wildly independent, wonderful people who have managed to put aside any petty differences, any of the normal drama that can roil a community. They put that aside and under high stress have continued to operate for the greater good. And so who's entitled to make the determination for the future of that community? Those folks? We've had callers in our previous environment call in and talk about being in 4, 5, 6 generations of Burrillvillians.
I'm one of them.
They're not entitled to a say. What I find highly troubling with this Energy Facility Siting Board legislation is the notion that 3 nameless, faceless individuals, who I'm sure nice people, but with no clear ties to the community, yet a distinct political tie to the political powers that are ultimately making the people of Burrillville, attempting to make them dance like marionettes, they ultimately control the process. And we are left to, despite generations of abuse perpetrated by our alleged leaders, again, as I always say, some elected, some self-appointed, we are supposed to suddenly, in the immediate generation after RISDIC, 38 Studios, the Providence Parking Violations Bureau scandal, what happened down at URI. We are suddenly supposed to trust them and trust the process. I don't know if it's possible for human beings, sentient, caring human beings, to continue to exhibit a level of trust in a organization called the state of Rhode Island, the state of Rhode Island government, that has, on such a grand level, routinely failed those same people. So I can't imagine how some of these folks, particularly the people who live in immediate proximity to this development, feel on a day-to-day basis. Now, the town council has been wonderful. I understand too, your legislators have been very, very supportive.
They have.
Talk to me about people like Cal Keeble and people like that.
So our representative, we have two representatives in Burrillville. We have Representative Cale Keeble, who has, his district is the majority of Burrillville. Then we have Representative Newberry, who has a small portion of Burrillville on the North Smithfield side. And then our state senator, Senator Paul Fogarty, you know, they've both been instrumental. They, very early in this process, they came out against the plant. They listened to their constituents. They realized, they did their own homework. They realized what a bad project this is for the area, how detrimental it's going to be for our livelihood, for our social, economic, you know, fabric of our town. You know, Burrillville is a bedroom community. Our tourism is hiking and hunting and camping. Mm-hmm. They want to put this power plant right in the middle of tens of thousands of acres abutting our state forests, where people from all over the state and the region come for hiking, hunting, camping, boating. We have some of the most pristine lakes in the state up in Burrillville. We have Wallem Lake. It's a pristine glacial lake. And that's also the main drinking supply for a state hospital that's up there, Zambrano Hospital, which services some of our most dependent patients in the state. Mm-hmm.
The level of frustration and the tension when I talk to folks is palpable. It's very often masked by a lot of courage, and I'll be blunt, a lot of balls. You know, folks in Burrillville have stones. I got to tell you that.
I would agree.
You know, they are a daily lesson to the rest of the state.
We're not afraid of anybody
or
anyone
or anything anywhere. The rest of the state, as they each have to deal with whatever crisis du jour, travesty is being perpetrated upon them, needs to look at the folks in Burrillville as truly profiles in courage. So many times I've seen well-meaning, well-intentioned, good people just burnt out after a matter of months. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this has been expensive. This has gone on for now, how long has it been?
It's been several years since they announced the project. I believe it was in 2015 now. Right. When the project was first announced.
What kind of cost, you know, that you could publicly talk about to the actual community? I mean, first of all, in terms of to the town of Burrillville, the town of Burrillville is paying for, you know, and again, he's doing a wonderful job. They couldn't have found anybody better. Mm-hmm. But it can't be inexpensive to maintain a legal effort.
It's not. There are hundreds and hundreds of billable hours that just our legal defense, you know, has spent to date. And not to mention, we have experts. We have water experts, noise experts, environmental experts. I mean, all of this costs money, and it costs a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the town has dedicated, you know, the time, the effort, and the money to fight this project with everything that we can. We will not stop until we see this project defeated.
And this money's gone, too. I mean, there's no payback, there's no recourse, there's no...
It's not entirely. So the way the state law is written, the Energy Facility Siting Board, there are means for us to seek reimbursement from Invenergy. Now, I'm a newly elected council member. I was recently elected this past November. And I believe I've seen one reimbursement check come through. I don't want to state the amount just in case I'm wrong, but I know we submitted, prior to myself being elected, we submitted for reimbursement, and I believe that check came in. We may have also recently submitted again for reimbursement, and that's something that the state law provides the mechanism for, but ultimately the Energy Facility Siting Board does have to approve, that reimbursement request.
Right. But so much of your effort has been come in the form of public donations.
So so that's on the town side. Let's talk a little bit about Keep Rhode Island Beautiful, and keeprideislandbeautiful.com. Myself being one of the original members, still a member, the grassroots campaign, when it came time to ordering signs, mugs, whatever it is, before we really formalized and started our fundraising efforts, we're shelling hundreds and thousands of dollars out of our pockets for an effort that we just felt so passionately about. It wasn't about money. It's like, what do we need to do? Okay, each person basically looks into their pockets and says, what can I afford this week? What do we need to do? Let's all throw hat in a bucket and let's get this task done. And as you've seen, we have the yellow signs have popped up, throughout the tri-state area, from Burrillville to Westerly to Tiverton, Providence, East Side, they're everywhere. As more and more people are awakening to just what's going on up in Burrillville and how it affects not just Burrivillians, but it affects all of Rhode Islanders and all of New Englanders, essentially. They're just jumping on board, and they're just appalled at, one, the lack of local control, and how we don't even have the ability at the end of the day to say no at the local level.
What message do you have to go for Governor Armando?
Should Governor Raimondo, if she were to come in the studio right now, I think the biggest message I have for her is, she's in charge of the entire state. I can't imagine the amount of projects and things that come across her desk on a daily basis. I would caution her, before she speaks out in favor of any project in the future, to really wait and do her due diligence and do her homework. Because she was seen and heard and recorded, it's public record, she came out in favor of this project right from the get-go, telling Michael Polsky, the CEO of Invenergy, that we're going to do what we can to make sure you're successful here. Well, this was all before this quasi-judicial group or entity, the Energy Facility Siting Board, even started their initial hearings or their initial order. So how can you have this quasi-judicial, supposedly impartial group when the governor, who they all report to on their day-to-day jobs, has come out and told the public that we're going to make this project successful? What would you do if your boss says, all right, I need you to be impartial, but we want to make sure this project's successful? Right. How can you be impartial anymore? So I'm just asking the governor, make sure that for the rest of this project, that you do not publicly support this project. I'd love to see you publicly oppose this project, because I believe there's been enough expert witness and testimony now to see that this project is detrimental for the state and the region. And also in the future, any projects that come down, we don't need another 38 studios in this state. And I think you should really do your due diligence. Be careful who you have around you. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with people with the right intentions, and do your homework before you cast judgment, thumbs up or thumbs down, on any projects in the future.
Right. So basically, you're just asking her to be a good governor.
Be a good governor.
And be a good steward of the people's resources.
That's right. How long ago was it when we were told that this government and this nation should be a government by the people and for the people? And that's what we want to happen here, and that's what we want to see going forward.
Do you think that's happening right now in terms of not Burrillvillian town government, but in terms of state government right now? Is it? Do you feel at this point, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
Do you feel at this point that the state of Rhode Island has the best interests of the residents of the town of Burrillville at heart?
I would say there has been a major shift over the last couple of years towards looking out for the best interest in Burrillville from the entire state government. I think we went from being brushed off to being told to go away to now, we've made enough noise and enough people have woken up to realize what's going on, that the state's like, you know what, maybe this is a bad idea. And I think they're starting to listen. I hope they continue to listen. And at the end of the day, I hope the state makes the right decision. And the only right decision on this is to say no to this project.
Ultimately, the next cycle of statewide elections are just, a year and a half or so away.
Yeah, they're right around the corner.
I would imagine after this that the people in Burrillville are going to have long, long memories of who was there for them, who did the right thing, and they're going to remember the folks that they feel on a political level and on a personal level stabbed them in the back. Despite the positivity, the warmth, the support, the caring of the people of Burrillville, I get the sense that the people of Burrillville have very long memories.
We do have very long memories, for better or for worse. You know, in the increasing information age, where we're such an ADHD society, where right now we're over on this webpage, now we're on this webpage, and we don't remember what we did yesterday, this is a project, a proposed project, that will be remembered for years and years, if not decades to come. And Burrillville will never forget, and we'll make sure that a proposal like this never happens again.
Right. Well, I applaud your leadership. I've had the opportunity to speak to a number of the folks who lead the town of Burrillville. Again, your ability to put aside a lot of the petty political squabbling that is a virus in most towns, is astonishing, you know, and your ability to take this on the road and get the type of involvement from city councils that you have statewide. The analogy I often drew at our former home was that you've managed to convince city councils to support you when usually they can't even agree on where to put a stop sign.
You know, we did this entire effort, you know, the Keep Rhode Island Beautiful, the Burrillville Land Trust, going town to town, city to city around the state. Out of our 39 cities and towns, I'm going to mess up the number, but it's in the 30s.
Right.
I believe there's only 4 or 5 communities that at this point have not passed a resolution supporting Burrillville's opposition to this power plant. And most of those cities and towns supported those resolutions by unanimous vote.
Right. And while at the same time, folks in Connecticut and Massachusetts are continuing to weigh in as well.
They have, yes. So we have several communities surrounding in Mass, in Connecticut. I believe it's Thompson, Connecticut, Douglas, Mass.
Right. Right. What's the next step?
The next step, right now we're in a 4-month delay with this project because of the loss of water and the new method that they want to use to truck this water from Johnston all the way to Burrillville. The plans have, or the design, if you want to call it that, we've yet to see a detailed design of this plant. But the PowerPoint level design that we've seen of this plant so far has changed so drastically that the Energy Facility Siting Board said, all right, we need 4 months and we need several state agencies to go back and go over their advisory opinions and redo them, as well as the building inspector in Burrillville. They want him to look over these changes and to re-advise to see how this PowerPoint change has impacted their opinion.
Is simultaneously the window closing for any level of financial viability for this plant?
I would say yes. You know, I'd like to throw in there, Pat, that we're talking about a company from Chicago that wants to come into the town of Burrillville that Moody's recently downgraded to, I believe, a D rating, credit rating, okay?
Excellent.
It's something dismal. And they want to come into the town of Burrillville, whose bond rating was recently increased to AAA, which is almost unheard of in the state of Rhode Island. And they want to come in here and tell us what a good neighbor they want to be and how they want to invest in us. And I just want to throw it out there that from what I've seen, they have a history of building projects. You know, they also do green projects like wind turbines. Well, after these projects are built, they're sold to the highest bidder and they've been known to go bankrupt. And the vendor says, well, that wasn't us that went bankrupt. What's to stop them from building this power plant? And when this power plant is completely phased out several years after it's built, from them selling it to someone, to some schmuck, at that point, and them going belly up. And now not only have we destroyed our community, the people, our environment, now we're left with this eyesore just rotting away in the middle of our state forest. In the middle of a national park, the John Chafee National Heritage Corridor. They want to build this in the middle of a national park. Make sense?
And to answer your question, there's nothing that can prevent that. This is one of those situations where once you break the glass, once you add water, there's no going back.
No. There is no undo button. There's no highlight,
Right.
cut, paste, delete. You
Right.
cannot.
Right.
Once you've destroyed it, it's gone.
It's done, and it's done forever. Or at least in yours, our children's, and our children's, and our children's lifetime.
That's right. The decisions we make need to be not for ourselves, but we need to be looking at what our grandchildren are going to have to deal with, and our great-grandchildren, and our great-great-grandchildren. If we're not doing that, we're not doing our jobs as a society and as a government.
And in your case, as a town leader.
As a town leader, yes.
Well, again, thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you for having us, Pat. Thank you for having me. This was wonderful. I was so excited to get the call to be on your inaugural show. I wish you the best of luck. I'd love to come back someday to give you some updates.
You guys aren't going away, so this is going to be, until this is done, there's going to be some element of this every week. The beauty of the 3 hours, and I wanted to bring people up to date tonight, kind of give an immersion in the process because of the opportunity to reach a new audience. But this and a few other issues in the state, they're not going to go away quickly, but guess what? Neither are you and I.
That's right.
Thanks again.
Thanks again, Pat.